Picture a room with no windows. You've just woken up in it and you don't remember arriving. There's only the room, 4 bare walls and a floor, and you standing on that floor, and you feel your own weight. The ordinary press of the floor against the soles of your feet, the same dull, faithful heaviness you have felt every waking second of your entire life. So here is my question, and it sounds like nothing, the sort of question you'd wave off at a dinner table. Where are you? Are you standing in a room on the good solid earth, weight and all, or are you sealed in a windowless box somewhere out in the deep of space, 1,000 miles from the nearest star, with a great rocket bolted underneath it, firing hard? So the whole box goes surging forward, and the floor comes chasing up under your feet and shoves. And I want to tell you something that took me a long while to swallow. There is no test you can run inside that room, none, not with every instrument ever built, that will tell you which of the two it is. And that isn't because the room's too plain or your senses too dull. It's a law, one of the deepest we have. And the man who first felt the edge of it called the thought that started it the happiest thought of his life.
The happiest thought of his life. Yes, those were very nearly his own words, and I have always loved that he reached for that particular one. Not the cleverest thought, not the deepest, the happiest, because what he'd stumbled into felt, to him, like a kind of release, a weight coming clean off his shoulders. And here's the thing I want the two of us to earn tonight, slowly, brick on brick. The weight coming off is not a turn of phrase. It's the physics, exact and literal and stranger than the poetry. But you've dropped us into the middle of it, the way you always do. Let me walk you back to the door.
Walk me back then, because the happiest thought and a room you can't place, I don't yet see the join. And I'll own up to something before we start. I've come down these stairs still half living in last season.
Then that is precisely where we begin, because last season is the very room we're about to walk out of. All that time we spent together, space and time sewn into one cloth, clocks that fall out of step, rulers that shrink when they run. Cast your mind back over every night of it. There was a rule I kept nailing up over the door, wasn't there? Night after night. One you never once thought to question.
You did keep saying it. Steady motion, over and over. Everything we were allowed to touch had to be steady, smooth, straight line gliding. No speeding up, no slowing down, no turning a corner. And, now you make me say it out loud, no gravity. Not once, the whole season. You'd wave gravity out of the room like it wasn't on the guest list.
It wasn't. That is what the word special was quietly doing, all season long, standing at the door like a bouncer. Special relativity was the physics of things drifting steadily in a world with the gravity switched off. A flat, stiff stage, and things sliding across it at their unchanging speeds, forever. And every single time you reached for gravity, or for a thing speeding up, I put my hand on your wrist and said, "Not yet, not yet." Well, tonight is yet.
Tonight is yet. I felt the floorboards creak when you said that.
Tonight we let the two forbidden things back into the room. Speeding up and gravity. The pair we spent a whole season barring at the door. And the very first thing we find, before we've so much as sat down, is that they are wearing the same coat.
You have been in the building for under a minute and you're already doing the thing. The thing where 2 words I was certain were perfect strangers turn out to have been married for years without telling me. Go on then. Speeding up and gravity. What have those two got to do with one another? One's a thing I do to a car with my foot. The other is the thing that keeps me in this chair.
Then let's start with the thing in your chair, with weight itself. That press you described in your windowless room, the floor against your feet. I want you to tell me what you think that feeling actually is. When you stand there and feel heavy, feel your own honest weight, what's going on in your gut that you'd point at and call gravity?
Gravity's got hold of me, that's the whole of it, surely. The earth is reaching up through the floor and pulling me down toward it, hauling on every ounce of me. And the floor is the one thing stopping me going any further down. The feeling of weight is the feeling of being pulled and held. Gravity grabs, the floor refuses to let go, and I'm caught in the middle of the argument. The caught in the middle is the thing I feel.
A tug of war, with you as the rope. And it is exactly what everyone feels, and exactly what Newton would have told you, word for word. And it is, let me pick this word carefully, it is not so much wrong as it is looking down the wrong end of the telescope. Let me show you the other end. And to do that, I'm afraid I have to take the floor away.
Take the floor away. I don't love the sound of that. I've grown rather attached to floors.
Everybody has. That's the drop in your stomach the instant you picture it. So we'll be gentle and only imagine. You're in a lift. A good, solid, ordinary lift, standing on its floor, feeling your ordinary weight, thinking about your lunch. And now, high up, out of sight, the cable gives way, and the whole lift, and you inside it, begins to fall. Freely. Nothing holding it, nothing slowing it. Down it goes, and you with it. Now, while you're falling, reach into your pocket, take out your keys, hold them up in front of your nose, and let them go. What do the keys do?
They drop. They fall to the floor of the lift. No, wait. The floor's falling too, isn't it? The floor is falling exactly as fast as the keys are.
Keep going. You've got the thread.
So the keys don't drop to the floor at all. The keys just hang there, in front of my face, because the keys are falling, and I'm falling, and the whole blessed lift is falling, every last bit of us, at precisely the same rate. So nothing moves an inch relative to anything else. The keys just float, in mid-air, beside my nose.
The keys float. You've got it in one, and look what you did. You talked yourself clean into it before I could open my mouth. Everything in that lift is falling together, at the one rate, so from the inside, nothing falls at all. You let go of the keys, they hang in the air at your shoulder. You tip up the coffee pot, and the coffee drifts out in a slow, shining rope and coils there. You yourself lift up off the floor and turn, gently, weightless, in the middle of the air.
All of it just hanging there. The coffee, the keys, me, all of us adrift.
All of you adrift, still as a held breath. And now, tell me, inside that falling lift, in the little while before anything unpleasant happens at the bottom, what has become of your weight?
It's gone. There's no press on my feet. My feet aren't on anything. There's no down. There's no heavy. I feel nothing at all. Which is an absurd thing to hear myself say because I am falling. I'm falling faster every second. The ground is rushing up to meet me, and that is supposed to be the most gravity a person can possibly be standing in. And instead, it's the one place in the whole world where I feel none of it.
There it is. That is the happiest thought. That's the whole of it, sitting in your own mouth, and I didn't have to drag you a single step. The person who is falling freely feels no gravity. Numb, not weakened, not softened, gone. He is, for that little while, exactly as weightless as a soul floating in the deep of space, with no world for 1,000,000 miles in any direction.
The same as deep space. Not a shade less than deep space, the very same reading, the very same nothing.
The very same nothing. Einstein said it arrived all at once. An ordinary afternoon, a dull desk, a daydreaming mind. The plain thought that a falling man does not feel his own weight. And he said it was the happiest thought of his life, and that it set him off down the whole long road that everything after depends on. One sentence. A falling man feels no weight.
But hold on. That can't be the whole story, because gravity is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. The Earth is still pulling on me the entire way down. That pull is the very reason I'm falling in the first place, the reason I'm picking up speed. I don't feel it, granted. I grant you completely that I don't feel a thing. But I don't feel it and it's gone are two entirely different sentences. I stopped feeling my own heartbeat years ago. It did not stop the heart.
That is exactly the right place to lean, and I want to keep you leaning there, because the entire weight of this whole season balances on this one point. You're right. I mustn't con you with a feeling. So let's not trust your skin. Let's be hard about it. Inside that falling lift, you may run any experiment your heart desires. Bring the finest instruments ever built. Weigh a thing. You can't. Nothing has any weight to read. Swing a pendulum. It won't swing. There's no down to pull it back to the bottom. Watch which way water runs when you pour it. It doesn't run. It balls up into a floating sphere.
None of the usual tells then. Nothing for the instruments to bite on.
Nothing to bite on anywhere. Drop two different weights to see which lands first. Neither lands. They hang there side by side, patient as you like.
So every test I try to catch it with just comes back empty-handed.
Every test comes back with the identical answer. No gravity here. Not a faint gravity. Not a shy one hiding under the noise. The reading each and every instrument hands you is the exact reading you would get, drifting in the emptiest patch of space there is.
So every needle in the box swings over to empty space. Even though I know for a fact, the Earth is right there underneath me, getting closer by the second.
Even though. And now I need you to hold both of those in your two hands at once, because this is the knife edge the whole thing lives on. I'm not going to tell you gravity doesn't exist. That's a step too far, and it isn't true, and if you take it, you'll walk clean off a cliff later in the season, and I'll not be there to catch you. The Earth is there. Something is real. But here is the exact, careful, astonishing thing. Inside that falling box, gravity has left no fingerprints. There is nothing you can measure, no experiment you can run, that separates falling freely toward the Earth from floating, weightless, in deep space with no gravity within 1,000 miles.
Nothing separates them. Not one measurement in the whole box.
Not one, anywhere. The pull hasn't been switched off in the universe. It's been switched off in the box.
In the box. Not in the world, in the box.
In the box, and switched off so cleanly, so completely, that from the inside the two situations aren't merely alike. They are, as far as any measurement will ever be able to say, the very same situation. Falling toward a whole world and floating in the middle of nothing come out identical on every dial.
Now that's the bit I want to actually understand, not just nod along to and pretend. Why? Why does the simple act of letting myself fall wipe gravity clean off every instrument in the box? When I let go of the keys and me and the lift and we all fall together, why together? Why so exactly together that nothing drifts against anything else? Because if those keys fell even a hair's breadth faster than I did, they'd sink toward the floor, I'd see them go, and the whole game would be up.
You've just asked the oldest question in this entire story, and the man who answered it was answering it 300 years before anyone alive knew what the answer was good for. Galileo. You know the tale, and whether or not he ever really climbed a leaning tower to do it, the fact he was chasing is true, and it is this. Drop a heavy thing and a light thing at the very same moment, a cannonball and a musket ball, a hammer and a pebble, and which one hits the ground first?
Oh, everyone's gut says the heavy one. The cannonball, obviously. It's heavier, gravity's got more of it to grab, so down it goes first. Thump, while the little one's still dawdling. And everyone's gut is wrong, or you wouldn't be sitting there with that particular smile on. They land together. I do actually know this one. The heavy and the light strike the ground at the same instant. Let them go together, and they fall together, and they land together, whatever anyone's stomach insists.
Together. Down to the last blink of an eye. And the one and only thing that ever spoils it, the sole reason a feather loses the race to a hammer here in this room, is the air. The air shoulders in under the feather and holds it up, dawdling it down. Take the air clean away, and the feather and the hammer fall exactly as fast as one another, and touch the ground at exactly the same instant.
Hang on, you can actually do this? It isn't only an argument on a chalkboard.
You can actually do it, and it has been done. And that is not a story, by the way. It has been done. On a world with no air at all, a hammer and a feather were let go together, high over the grey dust, and they came down side by side, unhurried, and settled onto the ground as one.
A world with no air. So out there, with nothing to cheat the race, the feather keeps up with the hammer the whole way down.
Keeps up perfectly, every step. Strip the air out of it, and everything, whatever it's made of, whatever it weighs, a cannonball or a snowflake or a grand piano, falls at precisely identically the same rate. There are no exceptions, not one, in all the history of anyone bothering to check.
Everything falls the same, however heavy, however light, whatever it happens to be made of. Feather, hammer, cannonball, me, my keys, my drifting rope of coffee, all of it falling at the one single rate.
All of it, at the one single rate. And now you can answer your own question, the one you asked me a moment ago. Why does everything in the falling lift float together? Because gravity does the one thing that nothing else in the world troubles to do. It pulls on everything in exactly the same way and hands everything exactly the same fall.
The same fall for everything in the box. That's the magic word again, isn't it? The same.
The same is the whole of the magic. So the moment the cable snaps, you and the keys and the coffee and the four walls all take off downward at the very same rate, and things all moving in identical step, shoulder to shoulder, do not move relative to each other at all. That's the floating. That is why it's exact.
Because if gravity played favourites,
then the whole trick would fall apart. If gravity dropped your heavy keys a touch faster than light boned you, the keys would sink toward the floor and give the game away, and your instruments would catch a whiff of gravity after all. But it does not play favourites. It never has, not once, for anything. And because it never has, falling erases it perfectly, for everything in the box, all at the same time.
So the very thing Galileo spotted all those centuries ago, everything falls the same. That isn't some footnote. That's the whole hinge the door swings on.
It's the whole hinge. Hang it in gold letters over the door. Everything falls the same. Galileo saw the fact, clean and clear, and it took 300 more years, and Einstein, to see that the fact was a door, and to get up and walk through it. Because sit with what it actually means. Every other push and pull in the world cares what a thing is made of. A magnet yanks on iron and utterly ignores a lump of wood.
Because the wood isn't iron. The magnet reads the label before it lifts a finger.
Reads the label first, every time. The wind bullies a leaf across the yard and barely troubles the stone beside it. Only gravity treats every single thing alike. Blind to what you're made of, deaf to what you weigh, caring about nothing whatsoever except where you are.
Only gravity. Out of all of them.
Only gravity. And a thing that ignores what you're made of and cares only about where you happen to be standing is starting to sound a good deal less like a force reaching out to grab you, and a good deal more like some property of the place itself. But I'm running ahead of us both. Hold that thought loosely. We'll not be ready to pick it up in earnest for weeks yet.
All right, you've switched gravity off by falling. I'll grant you the whole of that. I felt it go. That's the one half of my windowless room, isn't it? The floating half. Now do the other half for me. You stood me in a room and swore I couldn't tell it from a box with a rocket bolted under it, out in deep space. So switch gravity on, somewhere there isn't any.
The mirror image, and it is every bit as good. Take your box out to the deepest, emptiest place you can bring yourself to imagine. No Earth, no sun, no star within a lifetime's reach, no gravity anywhere near it worth the name. A box adrift in the true middle of nowhere, and you inside it, floating, weightless, your keys hanging in the air exactly where you left them, because nothing out here has any weight to give them. And now I bolt a rocket to the bottom of that box, and I light it. What happens?
The box takes off. It surges. Up, let's call it up, whichever way the rocket's pointing. The floor comes charging up in the direction of the burn.
The floor comes charging up, and you were just hanging there, minding nothing at all. So the floor comes surging up and meets the soles of your feet, and presses, and keeps pressing, because the rocket keeps firing, keeps the whole box speeding up, faster and faster every second. So the floor keeps pushing up into your feet, hard and steady and unrelenting. Now, the keys, they were hanging in the air. The floor isn't touching them. The rocket isn't pushing them. So the keys just hang there, exactly where they were, while the floor comes rushing up toward them. And from where you're standing, bolted to that floor, what do you see the keys do?
The keys, from my point of view, the keys fall. The floor comes up to them, but I'm standing on that floor, riding up with it. So to me, it just looks like the keys drop. They fall toward my feet. Exactly the way they'd drop if I let them go at home. And, oh, that's rather lovely. The heavy keys and a light feather would both get met by the same rushing floor at the very same moment, wouldn't they? So they'd fall together in here too. Everything falls the same in the rocket because it isn't them moving at all. It's the floor coming up to collect them.
It isn't them moving. It's the floor coming up to collect them, all at the one rate, because it's the one floor coming up under the lot of them. You feel weight, that steady press on the soles of your feet. You drop things and they fall. Two different things fall side by side. You could stand in that box and go about your whole morning exactly as you would at home. Pour your coffee and it runs down obediently into the cup. Drop your toast and it lands, butter side down, with a perfectly straight face.
Butter side down, even aboard a rocket. Some laws really are universal.
Some cruelties travel everywhere. And now I ask you the mirror of the question I asked in the lift. Is there any test, any measurement at all that you can run inside that sealed box, no windows, that tells you whether you're standing still on the Earth or riding a rocket through empty space with the floor forever rushing up to meet your feet?
And you're about to tell me there isn't a single one.
There isn't a single one. In a small enough box, over a short enough while, every experiment you run gives the identical answer. Whether it's a whole world's gravity holding you down, or a rocket's engine shoving you along. Weigh yourself, the same reading both ways. Drop the two balls, they land together both ways. Watch the coffee pour, pours the same both ways. Swing the pendulum, swings the same both ways. The box cannot tell you which it is, because to everything sealed up inside it, there is no difference there to be found.
So that's my windowless room, both halves of it, and now I see the two halves were always the same room, all along. Falling toward the Earth feels exactly like floating in the deep of space. That's the switched-off half. And standing here on the solid Earth feels exactly like being flung along by a rocket somewhere out in the emptiness. That's the switched-on half. Gravity and a floor coming up to meet you, you genuinely, honestly cannot tell them apart.
You cannot tell them apart. And that, said plainly, close to the way he first said it, is the equivalence principle. The single seed the whole of the rest grows out of. Gravity and acceleration, being pulled down by a world and being shoved along by an engine, are, in a small enough patch of space, for a short enough stretch of time, not merely alike. They are the same. There is no experiment, none anywhere, that can prise them apart.
None at all, not even in principle, not with sharper instruments, not with a cleverer test, not ever.
Not ever, by any road. Stand in a sealed box and feel your weight, and you have no way on Earth or off it to say whether a planet is pulling you or a rocket is pushing you. Let yourself fall and feel that weight vanish, and you cannot say whether you've escaped gravity or simply run out of engine. The two are one thing, wearing two coats.
The same thing, wearing two coats, and you say it so calmly, with your hands folded. But I think this is enormous. I think you've buried the lead under all that composure. You have just told me that the thing pinning me to this chair right now, this instant, the thing I have called gravity my whole life, the plainest and most reliable fact there is, the thing that has never once, not for a heartbeat, let me down, is flatly indistinguishable from just going faster and faster and faster. That whatever I feel when I feel my own weight, a man in a rocket with no planet anywhere near him for 1,000,000 miles feels the identical thing, for what looks like a completely different reason.
For what looks like a completely different reason, and yet nature will not, under any circumstances, let you tell the two reasons apart. Which ought to make you wonder, and wonder hard, whether they truly are two reasons at all. That's the vertigo, and you're right to feel it turning over in your stomach.
Go on and twist the knife then. You've plainly been saving this one up all night.
A good while longer than tonight. The most solid fact of your whole life, down, turns out to be a thing you can conjure up out of nothing at all with an engine, and delete out of the world entirely by letting go of a rope. Down isn't the fixed, faithful, dependable thing you always took it for. Down is just whichever way the floor happens to be pushing you at the time.
Now wait. Small enough box, short enough while. You keep tucking those two in, quietly, at the ends of your sentences. Like a man slipping a card up his sleeve and hoping I'll be too dazzled to notice. Small box, short time. What happens if I refuse to give you a small box? What if I take a great enormous hall of a room and I sit and watch for a good long while? Does the trick still hold then? Because it has the distinct smell of a trick that only holds so long as I agree not to look too closely.
You have a sharp nose, and you have just smelt the one true crack running through this whole beautiful business. And I'm going to do something I very rarely do, which is admit to you that I've smelt it too, and then flatly refuse to open it tonight. You're right. Make the box big enough, or watch inside it for long enough, and a difference does creep back in.
So the trick does have a seam in it. I knew there was a catch tucked up that sleeve.
There's a seam. A very particular difference. One that no falling and no rocket can ever quite scrub away. It's faint, it's stubborn, and it is, I'll say only this much, the exact thread we'll take hold of weeks from now and pull until the whole of gravity unravels in our hands into something nobody saw coming.
But not tonight.
Not tonight. Tonight the honest word is the small one. In a small enough patch of the world, for a short enough while, gravity and acceleration are the same thing, flat out, with no daylight between them at all. The word for that is local. It's a local truth. True in the small, true in your box, true right where you're standing. And nearly everything wonderful in this entire season is going to come from taking that local truth and asking, very slowly and very carefully, what it costs us to try and make it a truth everywhere.
Local, a truth in the small, that might not survive being stretched out to the large. All right, I'll leave the card up your sleeve, since you've as good as sworn to play it later, and I mean to hold you to that. but give me the small version cleanly, one more time, all in a piece, because I want to be able to say the whole of it back to you in my sleep.
Cleanly then. Here it is, the whole seed in one breath. In a small enough region, for a short enough time, there is no difference. None you can measure, and as far as anyone can tell, none that is even there, between standing still in a gravitational field and being accelerated along by an engine. And its twin, which is the very same fact turned neatly inside out. In a small enough region, for a short enough time, being in free fall is exactly the same as being far out in empty space with no gravity at all. Feel heavy, and you cannot tell a pull from a push. Feel weightless, and you cannot tell falling from floating. That's the equivalence principle, and a man once called the first faint glimpse of it the happiest thought of his life.
You know, the more I say it back to myself, the more it starts to sound less like a proud law of nature and more like a confession. Listen to what you've actually talked me into believing. Gravity is a force. That's what I was raised on. That's Newton. That's the apple bonking him on the head. A force. And yet this one particular force, alone out of the whole lot of them, I can switch clean off any time I please, just by letting go of something and falling along with it. And I can switch it back on again, out in the dead emptiness of space, where there's supposedly none of it to be had, just by lighting an engine. What kind of a force does that? What kind of a force turns itself off the moment you stop holding onto the rope?
That is the crack, and you've just put your thumb straight through the middle of it. Think about any other force you actually know. A real one. A proper, honest, Newtonian shove or pull. A magnet grips a nail. Does that grip vanish because you jump off a chair with the magnet in your hand? It does not. The nail clings on tight the whole way down to the floor. Electricity, the wind, a hand pressed on your shoulder, a rope hauling a cart uphill. Not one of them cares in the slightest whether you happen to be falling at the time. You cannot delete the pull of a magnet by letting yourself drop. But gravity, the mightiest of the whole family, the one that holds the moon on its leash and swings the planets round the sun, that one you can wave away entirely for everything in the room at once just by ceasing to fight it.
And forge it out of nothing, with an engine, where there wasn't any.
And forge it perfectly, out of nothing, with an engine, in a place that never had a scrap of it. A force you can delete by letting go, and counterfeit with a rocket, is a very strange kind of force indeed. Strange enough, I'd say, that you should begin to have grave doubts about the word.
Doubt the word force? All right, but be careful with me here, because I can feel myself about to overshoot the runway. You are not, tell me you are not, saying that gravity isn't real. Because I fell down the stairs once. It was extremely real. My elbow can still tell you the date. Something is going on out there. You're not about to send me back up those very steps telling everyone gravity's a fairy tale.
No, never that. And I'm glad you flinched, because that is the exact cliff I would have you not walk off. Not now, not later, not ever. Gravity is as real as the bruise on your shin. Things fall. Worlds go round. The tide comes in twice a day, faithful as anything. Something is unarguably, undeniably there. What I'm saying, what he was the first man alive to dare to say out loud, is narrower than "it isn't real," and a good deal stranger. It's this: whatever gravity is, it is not a force in the way that Newton meant a force.
And how did Newton mean it?
Newton's picture is a thing reaching out across empty space and grabbing you. A tug, a pull, an invisible rope strung taut from the heart of the earth to the marrow of your bones. And that picture works marvelously. I'll not hear a single word against it as a piece of practical bookkeeping. It flies our ships to the moon and back. It tells the tides when to turn. It's magnificent. But it cannot be the deep truth of the matter, because a real tug, a real rope, is a thing you would feel. the way you feel a real rope bite into your hands. And the one thing the falling man is absolutely, serenely certain of is that there is nobody pulling on him at all.
So, a rope you can't feel. That lets go the instant you stop struggling against it, that pulls on everything exactly the same, regardless of what any of it's made of. When you line all three of those up in a row, it stops sounding like a rope at all. It stops sounding like anything I've got a word for. If gravity is not the earth reaching up through the floor and grabbing me, then what, in heaven's name, am I doing, sitting here right now feeling so undeniably heavy? And what is the falling man doing that feels like precisely nothing?
Now you're asking the question that took him the better part of 10 years and very nearly broke him in the asking. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend I can hand you the answer tonight, because the answer is the whole long road ahead of us. But I'll give you the shape of the suspicion. The thing that afternoon at the dull desk planted in him, that he couldn't ever afterward dig back out. Go back to the falling man, the one who feels nothing. What if feeling nothing is the natural state? What if falling, sailing along, unresisted, feeling not a single thing, is simply what it is like to be left completely alone? To be doing the most natural, most effortless thing a body can possibly do.
And the strange one is...
And what if the strange state, the one that actually cries out to be explained, is not the falling at all, but you? You right now in that chair, you being held. Because look at what your chair is doing to you. The floor is shoving you, every second, without a moment's rest, away from the path you would otherwise take if it only let you go. Maybe you are the one being forced here. Maybe the falling man is the one going perfectly straight, doing nothing, going where things go when you leave them be. And it's the rest of us, pressed into our chairs, planted on our floors, who are being bent and shoved out of our natural way.
That turns the entire thing upside down. You're telling me the falling man, the one I'd have called doomed, the one plunging helplessly toward the hard ground, he is the one at peace, doing the natural thing, going straight. And I, sitting here dead still, perfectly safe in a chair, I am the one in a fight, being shoved off my own natural path every second of the day. And the shoving is the exact feeling I have spent my whole life calling weight.
That's the suspicion. Not proven. Not tonight, not for weeks. But that is the shape of it, and you can feel already, can't you, how badly it wants to be true. The weight you feel is not gravity pulling you down. It's the floor pushing you up, and away from the falling you would otherwise be quietly getting on with. Stop reading the feeling as a pull from below you and start reading it as a shove from beneath you, and the whole world turns silently over on its axis. The falling man has no floor to shove him, so he feels nothing. Because, in the truest sense, nothing is being done to him at all. He's simply going where things go when you finally leave them alone.
But come back to Newton for just a moment, because I don't want to be unfair to the man. He was nobody's fool, and his invisible rope did, as you keep saying, get us all the way to the moon and home again. Did he never notice this? That everything falls the same, whatever it's made of? Surely a mind of that size doesn't just stroll straight past a thing this strange without so much as a second glance.
He noticed. Of course he noticed. The man noticed nearly everything there was to notice. And here is the part that gives me a chill down the back of the neck every single time I tell it. In Newton's own bookkeeping, his own arithmetic of how the world moves, there are two completely separate things that both, by pure historical accident, happen to be called mass. And there is no earthly reason the two of them should be the same.
Two masses. All right, give me the first one.
The first is how hard gravity pulls on you. Call it your heaviness, your gravitational heft. The more of it you've got, the harder the earth hauls on you. Simple enough. That's the mass in the tug of war.
And the second?
The second is something else entirely. Nothing to do with gravity at all. It's how hard you are to get moving, how stubborn you are, how reluctant to have your motion changed. Shove an empty shopping trolley and a loaded lorry with the exact same push, and the trolley leaps away while the lorry barely deigns to stir, because the lorry has far more of this second thing, this stubbornness, this flat refusal to be hurried. Now, one of these is about answering to gravity. The other is about resisting a plain shove out on a flat road with gravity nowhere in the story. There's no reason on Earth, in all of Newton's system, that the two should have the faintest thing to do with one another.
And yet, I can hear the "and yet" coming a mile off.
And yet, they are, as far as any soul has ever managed to measure, exactly the same number. To the very last decimal anyone can reach down to. Your heaviness and your stubbornness are equal. Precisely, uncannily, suspiciously equal. And that equality is the secret engine sitting underneath Galileo's whole fact. Watch how it turns. Take a heavy thing. Gravity pulls on it hard, but it is also exactly that much more stubborn, that much more reluctant to be shifted. So the great big pull and the great big reluctance cancel each other out, perfectly, every time. Take a feather-light thing. Gentle little pull, but feeble little stubbornness to match, and again, they cancel, exactly. So the heavy thing and the light thing are dragged up to the very same speed, at the very same rate. Because inside each of them, the pull and the reluctance are the identical number, and they eat each other alive.
So that's why the cannonball and the feather land together. The two masses inside each of them cancelling out, so cleanly it doesn't matter which you drop.
That is exactly why. It isn't some tidy coincidence of the objects themselves. It's a coincidence sitting right at the very bottom of the world, buried under everything. Two numbers, with no business being equal, turning out to be equal for every last object anyone has ever thought to test.
And Newton? What, he simply wrote the two numbers down as equal and got on with his day? Two things that have no earthly reason to match, sitting there matching to the last decimal, and he didn't lie awake nights over it.
He wrote it down. He checked it, as carefully as any man of his age could. He swung weights of every different substance he could lay hands on, from strings, watching to see if any of them fell even a hair differently from the others. And not one of them did. And then, being a sensible man with a whole universe to run, and only the one lifetime to do it in, he set the fact up on the shelf as a curious little oddity, and moved along. And there it sat, this outrageous coincidence, up on the shelf, gathering dust for the better part of 200 years, while every clever person alive walked straight past it without a glance.
Until the man at the dull desk looked up.
Until the man at the dull desk looked up at it, and refused, flatly, stubbornly refused, to believe it was a coincidence at all. Because when two things that ought to be perfect strangers turn out to be identical to every decimal place you can measure down to, a certain rare kind of mind does not shrug and reach for the shelf. It says, they're identical because they were never two things. They have been one thing all along, and I have simply been too dim to see it. That refusal, that single, obstinate refusal to swallow a coincidence, is the seed the entire season grows up out of. Your heaviness equals your stubbornness, because falling and floating are the same, because gravity and acceleration are the same, because, and here I have to stop dead, because the very next word is the one we haven't earned yet.
You did it again. You walked me right up to the edge of the cliff, let me get both my toes hanging over it, and then laid your hand flat on my chest. The next word is the one we haven't earned. You are an absolute menace, do you know that? All right. What can you tell me the next word is about, without actually saying it?
I'll tell you the neighborhood it lives in, and not one street further. It is not about a force. We have as good as buried the force tonight, the two of us. A pull you can't feel, that lets go the moment you stop resisting it, that treats a feather and a cannonball as perfect equals. That is not the behavior of a force. That is the behavior of a landscape, a shape, something about the arena things move in rather than a hand reaching into the arena to grab them. Something about the paths things take when you leave them well alone.
A landscape, a shape.
I'll say the word geometry once, very quietly, and then take it straight back off the table, because we have not yet earned a single syllable of what it means or how it could possibly work. But that is the country we're traveling to over these next weeks. Gravity, it may turn out, is not a thing that happens in the world. It may be a thing about the shape of the world itself. And that ordinary afternoon at the desk with the happiest thought, a falling man feels no weight, was the very first step of the whole long journey there.
Then let me ask you the thing a properly suspicious person asks at this point in the evening. This is all very beautiful. The box, the two coats, the falling man at his ease, the shape of the world, but it is a great deal of thought and precious little experiment. Lifts with snapped cables that I am not, thank you, ever actually going to climb inside. Rockets out in empty space I can't build. If gravity and acceleration are really, truly the same thing, not poetically, not as a lovely way of talking, but in hard, cold fact, is there anything it actually predicts? Something I could go out and check? Something that would catch this pretty idea in the act of being true?
That is exactly the right thing to demand, and it is exactly where he went next. And it is where the danger and the glory both live, side by side. So watch the move. Watch it closely, because it is, to my mind, the single loveliest piece of reasoning in all of physics, and I want to leave you standing right on the doorstep of it. We've agreed, you've agreed over and over, all night long, that the sealed box cannot tell gravity from acceleration. Cannot, by law. So here is the trap that lays for the whole universe. Whatever happens inside the accelerating rocket, anything at all, any effect you like, must also happen inside a box standing perfectly still in gravity.
Must, not might, must.
Must. Because if it didn't, if there were one single thing that came out even slightly different between the two boxes, then that one thing would be your test. You'd run it, spot the difference, and triumphantly announce which box you were in. And we have just spent an entire night agreeing, at length, that no such test exists anywhere. So anything the rocket does, gravity is compelled to do too. It has no say in the matter, no choice at all.
All right, anything the rocket does, gravity has got to copy it exactly, or else the box would give itself away. I follow that. It's tight. It's actually airtight. Now I hold it up to the light. So, what do you do to the rocket? What's the one thing you make it do?
You do the one thing that ought to be utterly, laughably beyond gravity's reach. You reach for something with no weight at all. Something so fast, so light, so free, so completely unburdened that surely, a mere pull from a lump of a planet could never lay a finger on it. You take a beam of light, and in your accelerating rocket, you fire it straight across the box, wall to wall, dead level, a perfect ruler-straight horizontal arrow of light. And you ask one simple question: where does it land on the far wall? Does that beam cross the box in a perfectly straight line, level as it left, or does something happen to it in the little while it's in flight?
Well, light goes straight. That's practically the whole point of the stuff. It's the straightest thing there is. We rule our straight lines with it. We check whether a shelf is level by squinting along a beam of it. So it crosses the box and it hits the far wall dead level with where it started. What else could it possibly do? It's light. It doesn't do bends.
What else could it possibly do? Hold that certainty. Hold it exactly as tightly as you once held. A speed is always relative to something. On the very last night, before I took that away from you too. because here is where I am going to be cruel and stop. In the rocket, that beam of light does not cross the box level. While the light is making its way across, a tiny, tiny sliver of a while, the floor is doing the one thing the floor never stops doing. It's rushing upward, faster every instant. So by the time the light reaches the far side, the far wall is not where it was when the beam set out, and the beam lands a little low.
A little low? Not because…
Not because anything reached out and touched the light. Nothing did. The light flew dead straight across the box, true as an arrow, exactly as you said it would. But the box itself surged up underneath it while it was crossing. So it arrives low. It bends, or rather, the whole world bends up around it, and it comes in nearer to the floor than it left.
Oh, that's not fair, because if the light lands low in the rocket, and the box can't tell the rocket from gravity,
then the light has to land low in gravity too. It has no choice. You nailed the reason to the wall with your own 2 hands not 10 minutes ago. If a beam of light bends in the accelerating rocket, then a beam of light must bend, by exactly the same law, in the pull of a world. Gravity, the very thing we were all so sure could never touch anything weightless, must bend a ray of light. And that is not some thought experiment you can shrug off and forget, a box in your head you'll never build. Because starlight bending is a thing you can go out under the open sky and catch the whole universe in the act of doing. But that is next time.
Next time? Of course it is. You always do this to me. You leave me holding one clean, impossible sentence and send me back up the stairs to lie awake with it rattling round the dark. So let me make sure I've got the right sentence before you send me off. I came down these stairs tonight thinking gravity was the surest thing I owned. A force, a pull, the earth's own hand laid firm on my shoulder. The one fact in all my life that has never once let go. And you've shown me a man who can make the whole of it vanish just by falling, and forge it up out of nothing at all with an engine, until I honestly cannot tell the pull of an entire world from the shove of a rising floor. And now, on your way out the door, you tell me that same impossible sameness means gravity must reach out and bend a beam of light. Light, of all the things in creation, the one thing I'd have staked my life was untouchable. So, no, I don't imagine I'll be doing much sleeping. I'll be lying up there in the dark, watching a level beam of light come sliding in low across the floor of a rocket that isn't even moving, in a box that might, for all I can tell, be sitting quietly on the earth, and wondering what on earth the whole night sky is going to look like once you've taught me how to catch it in the act. I'll be down early. Bring the light. Good night.